The plasma rounds tore through the air 3 inches from Captain Derek Manning's head. He didn't flinch. The Kryn execution squad had terrible aim, or they were toying with him. Either way, he had about 4 seconds before they recalibrated. "Human, step aside," Commander Vikstra hissed through her translator. The insectoid warrior stood chained between 2 energy pylons, her 4 arms locked in gravitational restraints. "This is not your fight." Derek raised his sidearm and fired twice. The first shot shattered the left pylon. The second took out a Kryn soldier's weapon before he could fire again. "Everything's my fight now." The compound alarm shrieked across the detention yard. 30 Kryn guards materialized from the barracks, their exoskeletons gleaming under the triple moons of Sector 9. Derek had maybe 10 shots left. Vikstra had been sentenced to death for refusing to execute human prisoners during the Outer Rim conflicts. Her own people had turned on her. The Kryn High Command wanted her erased quietly. No witnesses, no trial. Derek had other plans. "You are insane," Vikstra said as the right pylon exploded under his third shot. The gravitational field collapsed. Her arms dropped free, still shackled but mobile. "They will kill you for this. They can try." Derek grabbed her upper right arm and pulled her toward the perimeter fence. Plasma fire erupted behind them, scorching the ground where they'd stood. The fence hummed with lethal voltage, but Derek had spent 3 days mapping the power grid. He knew exactly where the dead zones were, here. He shoved her through a gap in the lower section. Vikstra's compound eyes widened as she squeezed through, her carapace scraping against the metal. Derek followed, rolling into the dust as energy bolts hammered the fence behind him. A Kryn dropship roared overhead, searchlights sweeping the wasteland. Derek grabbed Vikstra's arm again and sprinted toward the canyon ridge 200 meters away. Her legs were longer, faster, but the chain slowed her down. "Why?" she demanded, keeping pace despite the restraints. "Why risk execution for me?" Derek didn't answer. He'd seen the recordings. Vikstra standing between Kryn firing squads and human civilians. Vikstra refusing direct orders. Vikstra being dragged away in chains while the humans she'd saved escaped into the tunnels. Nobody else had come for her. Her own species had abandoned her. The human coalition had moved on. But Derek remembered. The canyon edge appeared through the darkness. Behind them, 50 Kryn soldiers poured from the compound, their weapons lighting up the night. Derek's ship waited on the other side if they could reach it, if the fuel cells hadn't been discovered, if his calculations were right. Vikstra stumbled. Derek caught her, his hands barely wrapping around her armored forearm. "Move," he said. She stared at him for half a second, then ran. The canyon drop was 80 feet straight down. Derek didn't slow. He grabbed Vikstra's shackled wrists, activated the grapple launcher on his belt, and jumped. The line screamed as it extended, their combined weight pushing the mechanism past its safety limits. Rock face blurred past them. Plasma fire from above turned the cliff edge into molten slag. They hit the canyon floor hard. Derek's ankle twisted, but held. Vikstra landed in a crouch, her legs absorbing the impact better than any human could manage. The grapple line snapped free. Useless now. Derek yanked it loose and ran. "Your vessel is where?" Vikstra asked, scanning the narrow canyon. Her translator couldn't quite hide the urgency in her clicking mandibles. 2 clicks west. Hidden ravine. Derek's lungs burned. "The thin atmosphere on this moon wasn't designed for sprinting. Can you move faster with those chains?" Vikstra's answer was to surge ahead, her forearms pumping despite the restraints. Derek pushed harder, forcing his legs to keep pace. Behind them, rappel lines dropped from the canyon edge. The Kryn weren't giving up. The ravine appeared like a wound in the rock face, barely wide enough for his ship. The Vagrant sat exactly where he'd left it, a beat-up human freighter that had seen better decades. Derek slapped the hull access panel. Nothing happened. "Come on!" he hissed, hitting it again. The Kryn soldiers were 60 seconds behind them, maybe less. The hatch groaned open. Derek shoved Vikstra inside first, then hauled himself up. The hatch sealed as plasma rounds sparked off the hull. He sprinted for the cockpit, Vikstra right behind him, her chains rattling against the corridor walls. "Strap in anywhere." Derek said, dropping into the pilot seat. His hands flew across the controls. The Vagrant's engines coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Outside, Kryn soldiers surrounded the ship, their weapons charging. "They will destroy us before we clear the atmosphere," Vixtra said. She'd wedged herself into the co-pilot station, her shackled arms gripping the restraint bars. "Not if I'm fast enough." Derek slammed the throttle forward. The Vagrant lurched upward, tearing through the ravine walls. Metal screamed. Rock fragments pelted the viewports. The ship bucked hard to port as a plasma cannon found its mark, but Derek compensated, pushing the engines beyond their rated thrust. The canyon walls gave way to open sky. 3 Kryn interceptors were already in pursuit, their sleek forms cutting through the atmosphere like knives. Derek threw the Vagrant into a spiral, dodging the first volley of missiles. The second volley clipped his starboard stabilizer. Alarms shrieked through the cockpit. "Shields at 18%, Vixtra reported, reading the displays without being asked. "You have no weapons systems. Don't need them." Derek angled the ship toward the debris field orbiting the moon, the remnants of a destroyed mining station. The interceptors followed, closing fast. Derek waited until they entered the field, then cut the main engines entirely. The Vagrant went dark, momentum carrying it deeper into the spinning wreckage. The interceptors shot past, their sensors momentarily confused by the debris. Derek counted 3 seconds, then reignited the engines at minimum burn, using a chunk of station hull as cover. "Ingenious," Vixtra said, "but temporary." "Everything's temporary." Derek plotted a jump vector, his fingers steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. The interceptors were already looping back, their targeting systems compensating. "Hold on!" The jump drive engaged with a sound like reality tearing. Space folded, twisted, and the Vagrant punched through into hyperspace. The interceptors vanished, the alarms went quiet. Derek slumped in his seat, breathing hard. Vixtra stared at him with all 4 of her compound eyes. "You did not answer my question before. Why risk your life for me?" Derek turned to face her. The chains around her wrists reflected the soft glow of the jump drive. "You saved 247 humans on Station Chorus. You stood between them and your own firing squad. Nobody came for you. I was court-martialed, dishonored, sentenced to erasure. You were a hero." Derek pulled a plasma cutter from the emergency kit. "Now hold still." He cut through her chains one by one, the metal falling away in glowing pieces. Vixtra flexed her arms, all 4 moving independently again. She looked at the severed shackles, then at Derek. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere they can't find you." Derek checked their heading. "I know people. Safe havens. You'll disappear." Vixtra's mandibles clicked in what might have been disagreement. "No." Derek raised an eyebrow. "No. You faced an execution squad for me. Alone." Her voice carried a weight the translator couldn't diminish. "I will not leave your side. Where you go, I go. This is decided." The safe haven turned out to be a human trading post called Crossroads Station, a spinning wheel of metal anchored to nothing in neutral space. Derek docked the Vagrant in Bay 17, between a Tellarian spice hauler and what looked like a decommissioned warship. The station hummed with activity, 1,000 species conducting business in the gray zones where no government had jurisdiction. "Stay close," Derek said as they descended the ramp. "Don't make eye contact with anyone wearing red insignias. Those are Syndicate." Vixtra's forearms hung loose at her sides, ready. "I can handle Syndicate." "Not the point. We're here to disappear, not start wars." Derek led her through the docking bay, past cargo loaders and fuel technicians who barely glanced their way. A human and a Kryn walking together wasn't common, but on Crossroads it wasn't remarkable either. They'd made it halfway across the main concourse when the screens changed. Every display in the station flickered, then showed the same image: Derek's face, Vixtra's profile. The text scrolled in 12 languages. Wanted for treason against the Kryn Dominion. Reward: 500,000 credits. Alive preferred. Dead acceptable. Move. Derek grabbed Vixtra's lower left arm and pulled her toward a side corridor. Around them, heads turned. Conversation stopped. Someone reached for a communicator. They ran. Derek knew Crossroads well enough to navigate the service tunnels, the maintenance shafts the station maps never showed. Vixtra matched his pace, her longer stride eating up the distance. Behind them, footsteps multiplied. Bounty hunters, opportunists, anyone willing to sell them out for 500,000 credits. There. Derek pointed to a sealed hatch marked with hazard symbols. He punched in an override code, something he'd bought 3 years ago from a drunk station technician. The hatch groaned open. They slipped through into darkness. Dead. Environmental systems down here were minimal. The air tasted recycled, stale. Derek activated a glow stick casting weak light across abandoned machinery and forgotten cargo containers. We wait here until the heat dies down. It will not die down. Vixtra positioned herself near the hatch, watching their back trail. The Kryn Dominion has made this personal. They will hunt us across every sector. Then we keep moving. Derek checked his communicator. 3 messages, all from the same contact. He opened them reluctantly. The first was a warning. The second was an offer. The third was coordinates. "What is it?" Vixtra asked, reading his expression. "My old unit." "They heard about the bounty." Derek stared at the screen. "They want to meet. Say they can help. A trap, maybe." Derek pocketed the communicator. "Or, maybe they remember what you did at Station Chorus." Vixtra's mandibles clicked softly. "Humans, you are all insane." A sound echoed through the tunnel. Voices. Multiple contacts, moving fast. Derek killed the glow stick, plunging them into darkness. He felt Vixtra shift position beside him, heard the faint scrape of her carapace against metal. Lights appeared in the distance. 6 figures, armed, moving in tactical formation. Not station security. Too organized. The lead figure carried a scanner, sweeping it across the tunnel. "Heat signatures detected!" a voice called out. 2 contacts, 50 meters ahead. Derek's hand found his sidearm. 6 rounds left, 6 targets. Bad odds. Vixtra's hand, her upper right, closed over his wrist. She pulled his hand away from the weapon. "Trust me," she whispered. Before Derek could respond, Vixtra stepped into the center of the tunnel. The lights fixed on her immediately, 6 weapons raised. "Don't move," the lead bounty hunter ordered. "You're worth more alive, but we'll take what we can get." Vixtra spread her 4 arms wide, a gesture of submission. "I surrender." "What are you doing?" Derek hissed from the shadows. "Trusting you trusted me," Vixtra said without turning. "Now run!" The bounty hunters advanced. Derek's every instinct screamed at him to fight, to put himself between her and the guns. But Vixtra had bought him seconds, maybe minutes. If he wasted them, her sacrifice meant nothing. He ran deeper into the tunnel, hating every step. Behind him, he heard the hunters securing Vixtra. Heard her compliance, her lack of resistance. It made no sense. She could tear through them. She'd faced down execution squads before. Then Derek understood. She was protecting him, drawing them away, giving him a chance to escape, to survive, to find help. The same thing he'd done for her. He found an access ladder and climbed. His mind raced. The coordinates his old unit had sent were for a location 2 sectors away, a derelict shipyard where questions weren't asked. If they really wanted to help, if this wasn't a setup, he might be able to mount a rescue. If. The word tasted like ash. Derek reached the upper level and emerged in a marketplace. Normal station life continued around him, oblivious. He purchased new clothes with the last of his emergency credits, changed his appearance, and moved toward the departure bays. The Vagrant was compromised. Station security would be watching it. But Derek had friends who owed him favors, and Crossroads Station had no shortage of ships that could disappear for the right price. He found what he needed in Bay 42, a fast courier, small enough for one person, armed enough to matter. The owner took Derek's offer without haggling. Smart people didn't ask questions when someone paid triple the asking price in untraceable credits. Derek programmed the jump coordinates and lifted off. As Crossroads Station shrank in his viewport, he made himself a promise. Vixtra had refused to leave his side. Now he'd show her what that loyalty meant in return. He was coming back for her, and anyone standing in his way would learn why humans didn't abandon their own. The derelict shipyard floated in the void like a skeleton, its bones picked clean by scavengers in time. Derek brought the courier in slow, scanning for weapons signatures, for traps, for any sign this was the ambush he feared. The coordinates his old unit had sent led to Docking Base 7, a gaping wound in the station's hull. His communicator crackled. "Manning. That you?" Derek recognized the voice immediately. Lieutenant Cole Brennan, his former squad leader. "It's me. Come on in. We've got the bay pressurized." Derek guided the courier through the airlock. Inside, temporary lights had been rigged across the bay, illuminating 3 figures waiting beside a gunship. Derek recognized them all. Brennan, tall and scarred from a dozen campaigns. Lopez, the squad's tech specialist, her cybernetic arm gleaming. And Harris, the heavy weapons expert who'd saved Derek's life on Proxima Station. Derek descended the ramp with his hand near his weapon. Old friends or not, caution kept people breathing. "Easy," Brennan said, raising both hands. "We're here to help." "Help how?" Derek stopped 3 meters away. "The Kryn have 500,000 credits on our heads. We heard what you did." Lopez stepped forward, her mechanical fingers dancing across a datapad. Breaking Commander Vikstra out of a detention facility. Going up against an execution squad solo. That took guts. Took stupidity, Harris added, but he was grinning. The good kind. Derek didn't relax. "Where is this going?" Brennan crossed his arms. "Station Chorus. We were there, Manning. We saw what she did. Vikstra stood between us and her own people, refused a direct order to execute civilians. She saved every one of us." His expression hardened. "When we heard the Kryn sentenced her to erasure, we wanted to act. Command wouldn't authorize it. Said it would damage diplomatic relations. So you're going rogue? We're settling a debt." Lopez turned her datapad around. It showed a schematic of a Kryn detention transport. "They're moving her to a black site prison in Sector 11. No trial. No records. She goes in, she never comes out." Derek studied the schematic. The transport was a fortress, shielded and armed, with a full security complement. When? 6 hours from now. They're taking the Kelvin route through the asteroid fields. Brennan pointed to a highlighted section. "We hit them here, at the bottleneck. Fast extraction, then scatter. 4 people against a Kryn military transport." Derek shook his head. "That's suicide. 5 people," Harris corrected. "You're in, right?" Derek looked at each of them. Brennan, who'd led them through impossible odds before. Lopez, who could crack any system ever built. Harris, who treated heavy weapons like musical instruments. They were offering him everything. A chance to save Vikstra. A squad he could trust. A plan that might actually work. "What's the play?" Derek asked. Brennan smiled. "Lopez hacks their navigation, forces them into the bottleneck. Harris takes out their engines with the railgun. You and I board while they're disabled, grab Vikstra, and punch out before reinforcements arrive. Their security complement is 20 soldiers minimum," Derek said. 22, Lopez corrected. "But they won't expect a boarding action in an asteroid field. We'll have surprise." Derek walked to the edge of the bay, looking out at the wreckage floating beyond. Vikstra had surrendered to buy him time. She trusted him to survive, to escape, to live. Coming back for her went against every tactical instinct. It was reckless, dangerous. Exactly the kind of move that got people killed. But she'd refused to leave his side. She'd claimed him as hers to protect, hers to fight beside. Derek had faced down an execution squad for her once. He could do it again. "I'm in," he said. "But we do this my way. No unnecessary casualties. We're not murderers." "Agreed." Brennan extended his hand. Derek shook it. The next 4 hours blurred into preparation. Lopez rigged jamming equipment and hacking protocols. Harris calibrated the railgun with terrifying precision. Brennan reviewed the assault plan, adjusting for variables, accounting for failure points. Derek checked his weapons, his armor, his gear. Everything had to be perfect. They launched 90 minutes before the intercept window. The gunship cut through space silently, running dark, every system minimized. The asteroid field appeared on their screens, a chaotic maze of spinning rock and ice. "Transport inbound," Lopez reported, "right on schedule." Derek watched the Kryn vessel approach on the tactical display. It was massive, built for containment and deterrence. Vikstra was inside that hull, locked in chains again, being transported to oblivion. Not today. Initiating hack, Lopez said. Her fingers flew across her interface. Their navigation is fighting me. Give me 30 seconds. The transport began to veer, its course shifting incrementally toward the bottleneck. Alarms would be sounding on their bridge now. Security would be mobilizing. Time compressed. Got it, Lopez announced. They're locked into the approach vector. Can't alter course without shutting down engines completely. Harris, Brennan ordered. The railgun spoke once. A single projectile crossed the distance in microseconds, striking the transport's primary engine cluster. The explosion bloomed silently in vacuum. The Kryn ship lurched, tumbling into the asteroid field, disabled but intact. Go, Brennan said. Derek grabbed his helmet and sealed it. The boarding pod launched, carrying him and Brennan across the gap. They hit the transport's hull hard, magnetic clamps engaging. Derek activated the breaching charge, metal vaporized. Atmosphere! Screamed outward. Derek and Brennan dropped through into chaos, weapons ready, and the fight for Vixtra's life began. The Kryn security team was already moving toward the breach when Derek and Brennan landed inside. Derek fired twice, dropping the first soldier before his weapon could track. Brennan took the second with a headshot that cracked the Kryn's helmet visor. The corridor filled with emergency lighting, red and pulsing. Detention block is 3 levels down, Brennan said, reading his tactical display. Lopez, we need a path. Uploading now, Lopez's voice crackled through their comms. You've got 20 hostiles between you and the target. They're converging fast. Derek reloaded and moved. The transport's interior was standard Kryn design, all sharp angles and efficient brutality. Every corner could hide an ambush. Every junction could become a kill zone. They reached the first stairwell as 4 more soldiers appeared above them. Brennan threw a flashbang. The device detonated with brilliant light and concussive force. Derek rushed up through the aftermath, firing on instinct. 2 Kryn fell. The third managed a wild shot that scorched Derek's shoulder plate before Brennan put him down. The fourth retreated, calling for backup. Contact ahead. Derek reported, descending toward the second level. They know we're here. Whole ship knows, Harris added from the gunship. I'm reading reinforcements scrambling from the barracks section. You've got maybe 4 minutes before they box you in. Derek and Brennan hit the second level running. A blast door began closing ahead of them. Derek slid under it. Brennan dove through after him, and the door sealed with a hydraulic hiss. On the other side, 6 Kryn soldiers waited in formation, weapons raised. Derek rolled left as plasma fire tore through the space he'd occupied. Brennan went right, returning fire, forcing the Kryn to scatter. Derek came up behind a structural support and dropped 2 soldiers with precise shots. Brennan's rifle chattered, taking down another. The remaining 3 charged. Hand-to-hand with Kryn was suicide for most humans. Their exoskeletons gave them strength advantages. Their reflexes were faster, their biology more resilient. But Derek had trained against Kryn instructors, learned their patterns, found their weaknesses. He ducked under a swinging blade arm, drove his combat knife into the joint seam, and twisted. The soldier screamed and fell. Brennan grappled with another, using the Kryn's momentum to slam him into the bulkhead, but the impact cracked the alien's chest plate. Brennan finished it with a point-blank shot. The last soldier ran. Derek let him go. They needed speed more than completeness. 3rd level, Brennan said, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm from a cut Derek hadn't seen him take. You good? Good enough. Move. The 3rd level stairwell was empty. Too empty. Derek's instincts screamed warnings. It's a trap. Don't care. Brennan descended anyway. We didn't come this far to stop. The detention block appeared through an armored door. Lopez overrode the lock remotely, and the door slid open to reveal a long corridor lined with cells. Energy fields shimmered across each entrance. At the far end, 8 Kryn soldiers stood in formation, weapons trained on the corridor, and behind them, visible through a cell's transparent wall, Vixtra hung suspended in gravitational restraints. All 4 arms spread wide, her compound eyes tracking the situation. Humans, the lead Kryn soldier said through his translator. You have made an error. Surrender now and your execution will be swift. Derek stepped into the corridor, not really the surrendering type. Brennan moved beside him. On 3, on 1, Derek fired. The corridor erupted into violence. Derek and Brennan advanced through plasma fire, using the cell doorways for cover, making every shot count. The Kryn held position, their formation designed for exactly this scenario. Derek took a glancing hit to his leg armor. Brennan's shield generator flared and died under sustained fire. Then Vixtra moved. Despite the restraints, despite being suspended helpless, she swung her body weight and slammed both feet into the cell's transparent wall. The material cracked. She kicked again. The wall shattered. The gravitational restraints anchored to the wall failed. Vixtra dropped free and exploded into the corridor behind the Kryn formation. Her 4 arms became weapons, striking with lethal precision. She had no tools, no guns, just her body and her fury. 3 Kryn soldiers went down in seconds. The formation broke. Derek and Brennan pushed forward, catching the remaining soldiers in a crossfire. The fight lasted 8 more seconds. Then silence, broken only by the sound of labored breathing. Vixtra stood among the bodies, her carapace scored with burns and cracks, her mandibles